speaker, harassment, discriminations, and violence against anyone by anyone is harmful to society and the individual. And the bullying is no different. Just because they're minors, that does not give them the immunity from these kind of problems that they cause. And we believe when these victims commit suicide, there's an extreme form of outcome that must be prosecuted to make sure that not only these kind of heavy bullying cannot never occur, but also mild form of bullies are also deterred. We believe that prosecution is the only way to send a clear signal to stop these kind of bullying. Therefore, we propose. Our model is very simple. We're going to allow criminal prosecution to be done when a victim in a school commits suicide because of bullying, ladies and gentlemen. Whether this was caused by bullying will be determined by the courts, depending on evidences, just like what they do in workplace harassment cases and also work abuse cases in general. That we believe that the court can adjudicate already those kind of circumstances. There is no problem adjudicating these things as well. And we're going to make sure that as many people who are responsible will be punished. Then the punishment will be depending on the degree, also on evidence and how much they were involved in the harassment and the bullying themselves. And that is also same with workplace harassment laws. That is not controversial at all. I'm going to talk about three things. First, I'm going to talk about why this most serious crime, why this is the most serious crime that deserves criminal prosecution, and why the society cannot tolerate this kind of attack against the children. And second, I'm going to talk about why minors are capable of consenting to this kind of crime and why they understand the consequences. And finally, I'm going to talk about how this will deter all forms of bullying in school as well as in other places. So now first about why this is a serious crime. Because ladies and gentlemen, like any kind of death created by any forms, whether it's harassment outside of school or inside of school, it is completely irreversible. If these people die, there is no way these people can be helped to make sure that they can come back into society. It creates irreparable damages not only to the family, but also the students around them, and also creates fear among the students of when next they're going to be bullied, who is going to be pushed off the edge to the point where they commit suicide. And maybe this is a threat to the school system itself and all children, because not only are people that have committed suicide been victims of bullying, but all children are usually in some mild form or heavy form are being targeted by these bullying measures. Because there is a perverse environment within school for children to make sure that they can be somehow above other people. So what they do is they try to bring down other people by calling them names, calling them and bugging them and embarrassing them, and in some circumstances commit all sorts of violence that makes it hard for them to even study or even come to school, and therefore they are extremely traumatized by these results. And we believe that we do understand that mild form bullying is hard to understand. It's hard to understand the consequences. But when people go to the point where they commit suicide, we believe that that is a point where the state has to step in to show that there is heavy consequences to bullying. That's why we believe that this is the best balance between making sure that bullying is not over-punished, but at the same time there's proper consequences to the extreme forms of damages it creates to the victim as well as the school system itself. We believe that also this kind of bullying has the potential to cause other forms of violence, ladies and gentlemen, because we believe that these students who have committed suicide could have just as easily have committed violent acts against its bully, ladies and gentlemen, which has happened in the Columbine High School massacre when the kids that were bullied and called gay got guns and started shooting the school precisely because they were continuously bullied. So we believe that the consequences could have been completely out of control. It is not just a problem of school and the victims, but also it could have caused harm, severe damage to all of society and the children around them. So we believe that this is serious enough to be prosecuted. We believe that already negligent homicide, if you knowingly allow people to die, that is a crime. If you assist people in committing suicide, then that's a crime. So we believe that that is no different from this form that people commit these kind of actions. And that will be nice into why these minors are consenting to this kind of problem. Because we all know from media as well as some schools by first-hand experience that bullies have committed to the level of people committing suicide. It is no secret and not any kind of laws are being expanded to punish minors in terms of serious crimes. If they commit murder, even if they're under the age of 13, they are prosecuted as adults. We believe that this is exactly the same as those kind of circumstances. We believe that it is serious enough for these people to be punished in that manner. But then it leads me nicely into how this will deter all forms of bullying. Because if, by unimaginable things, these kids don't recognize that these bullying are serious, don't recognize that these cause death, then we should make them recognize it through this kind of powerful message. Because the status quo's punishment is absolutely insufficient to show the gravity of the damages they have created. Even if they bully kids, they don't get punished right away. There's no clear guideline to punishing kids that they have. Also, it's extremely hard to spot these kind of bullies because the teachers can't be everywhere all the time, and also the students are very good at hiding, especially when it comes to non-violent forms of bullying. So we think that the only way to stop them is to show that these things have consequences. We think that the messaging effect of people being prosecuted, being arrested, sent to court, sent to jail is a strong form of messages that will resonate throughout the students and will deter not only people that have committed serious form of bullying, but also the people that have committed mild forms of bullying, because they don't know when that little bullying attack, their little teasing could lead to suicide. So that will deter all students from bullying to make sure that these people don't have a possibility of escalating. The consequences is clear. Unlike administrative punishments done in schools, it is that these cannot be gotten away. You can't negotiate your way out of it, or the parents can't pay money to the school to get away with it. We believe that this form, it creates a clear and just and equal punishment that befits of the system. We believe that by stopping these kind of bullying, it creates a cohesive atmosphere for all students to comfortably study and enjoy their school time for all students. And we can prevent these kind of deaths from ever happening as well. We can also prevent any kind of violent outbreaks like school shootings from happening from bullying, and we believe that is also positive as well. Ladies and gentlemen, bullying is no different from all kinds of harassment that is currently being banned by status quo that leads to death. Is just unacceptable, we propose.
I thank you for your affirmative. Now I call upon the first manager to deliver your first conference speech. 8 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, if everyone in the class will ignore one person, it may be the cause of suicide. So ladies and gentlemen, often suicide is happening with subjective values of the children. And we believe this is too heavy to punish some children and shape their future by the incident determined by the subjective reception of the children. And we believe that we have to oppose this motion. Well, firstly, let me allocate Firstly, I'll argue how actually this cannot be a logical correlation enough to punish children. And secondly, how we believe why children cannot control nor predict the information, then they do not deserve punishment. And thirdly, I'll argue that this would rather breed children's anger and sense of revenge, and it may cause further suicide. Okay, but before that, let me rebut something coming from PM. Ladies and gentlemen, firstly they say that, okay, bullying is a serious problem. We acknowledge that, but ladies and gentlemen, what we have to do is first of all, to control the situation by teachers or counselors. And we believe that this radical proposal is not the necessary means, as I explain later. And secondly, they say that anyway, kids know the consequences. But ladies and gentlemen, it is completely not true. Ladies and gentlemen, if children have a knife and kill someone, then of course they may know the consequences by their experiences on TV. But ladies and gentlemen, when they bully, they just enjoy bullying. Because bullying gives them the sense of superiority, etc. etc. As a result, ladies and gentlemen, they often do not consider the risk of the long-term harm. They do not consider the risk that they may suddenly kill themselves, ladies and gentlemen, as I explain later. And thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, they say that this incident can be huge deterrent to the children who are potentially bullying someone. But ladies and gentlemen, we believe that even under status quo, if bullying incident becomes serious as such a suicide case will occur, then already we said investigating team, we already reviewed the name, or we already report a case, ladies and gentlemen, then always there will be the sanction toward the children, toward those who bully, ladies and gentlemen. And we believe that in that sense, even though we do not criminal punishment done, because children have certain sense of deterrence, ladies and gentlemen. The question here is, children are often immature, that they cannot distinguish the sense of deterrence of the school punishment or prison punishment. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't think the current framework would be further strengthened severely by the proposal. Okay, having said that, let me move on to my first point. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that this is not the complete correlation to punish those who bully. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine the case. If everyone in the class, ignore one person, or if someone writes something bad in the Twitter, then it may result in the suicide of one person by sudden despair or etc. But we believe that this is the case. We often operate and we often think problem, but this is the case that we cannot punish those who bully. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because the suicide is determined by subjective value of those who receive bullying, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, of course they are immature, right? Therefore, those who are bullied are often not doing logical thing, even though they have some hope of escape, even though they have some other measure to help themselves, still they may commit suicide just because of despair, ladies and gentlemen. And no one predicts that. And secondly, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, actually there may be another way to actually escape from suicide. For example, even they are bullied, still they can call help for parents or teacher or counselor. But ladies and gentlemen, it is often the case that even they do not fulfill their effort to save themselves and finally commit suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, what is happening here is because the bullying itself, it may not be the sufficient and equal as the bringing them to death, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that in that sense, the death itself is not the responsibility of children. We believe that in that sense, it is the same as punishing those who are relevant. Let me cite an analogy, ladies and gentlemen. In Greece, the government let me cite another analogy. Ladies and gentlemen, if you require poor person to pay back the money forcefully, and poor person finally kills himself by the necessity or insurance fee, but still you are punished only, you are not punished as murder or giving them to death, because there is no correlation, no direct correlation, even though it may somehow encourage them to die, but it isn't their fault, it is their maximum force that brings them to death. There's no direct correlation, and there may be a lot of choice that backs the victim hard. And we believe that in that sense, the bullying itself and death is not directly the one-to-one relation. And we believe that death itself is not the responsibility of children. Okay, let me move on to the next section quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that in this condition, actually, those who bully cannot control nor predict the situation. Thus, it is really hard to require them to fulfill responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, they find several reasons. Firstly, of course, they are immature. And also, they have no experiences as such a violence, action, consequences, etc., ladies and gentlemen. And besides, as I said, when they are bullying, they just enjoy bullying, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, even though they listen to the news that there may be the suicide incident another place, but often children do not know the correlation or do not find that what they are doing is correlated to death, ladies and gentlemen. And especially in these cases, we believe that in these cases, it is totally different from such a labor places or harassment, etc. Because in labor cases, employers of course know the criteria, know the precedent, know the data that comes to a crime, and they can control that extent. But children can. Children do not know, and children cannot know. Ladies and gentlemen, in that sense, it's totally different from adult issue. Children can't find that their brain directly causes death. And we believe that in that sense, children do not control the situation. They do not predict the situation and bring, ladies and gentlemen, just by ignoring. We believe that in that sense, we cannot ask responsibility to children because it's same as, ladies and gentlemen, if you steal the paint of other person and other person dies by despair, but still you are not punished by death, ladies and gentlemen, because it is just not intended consequences, and no one can control that feeling, ladies and gentlemen. Let me move on. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, we believe inside the father suicide of children, ladies and gentlemen. Children who are bullied often have a sense of revenge, because their anger against those who bully them. But currently, they cannot do anything to revenge themselves, ladies and gentlemen. But after that, they have a precious choice to revenge them and actually make them imprisoned, ladies and gentlemen, by suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that it is totally dangerous consequences, because once children know, those who bully know that consequences, that legal system, then they may try to kill themselves to revenge, because they are totally angry about those who bully, but they cannot punish them by themselves, ladies and gentlemen. We believe, even though it seems illogical, but it often happens in children's cases, ladies and gentlemen. It is children that those who are immature and those who are inside of a temporary feeling, by the sense of despair, or etc., ladies and gentlemen. We believe it is totally realistic with that force.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, even though the 4,000 people are dying in the United States, elementary school and junior high schools, they never engage this problem by saying that there is the only engagement coming from the opposition is that they are wonderful educational system. We don't think this is enough, because as my father has already talked about, as long as the children will not recognize the damage for themselves, we think that children will not change their action anyway. That's why we think this is necessary, and they are not engaged really from the Prime Minister. I want to talk about, first I want to engage the previous speaker. The first thing he said that there is educational system revolt. The first thing, as I have said in my introduction in the sales call, many people are dying now. The 4,000 people in the United States elementary schools are dying in the first place. And secondly, we think that the children, even though we are doing the educational system, this doesn't mean that we can't change the action of children. We know that the children are knowing that this action is bad, but the children do not have the incentive to quit the bullying in the first place. Just because the children recognize this is bad thing, this doesn't mean that children will not do the bullying in the first place. They never ever engage my partner's argument. Why he has to explain why the children's action will change even if we keep the status quo. And secondly, even though we do education, this doesn't mean that we can't change the situation because of the nature of the bullying. The bullying is done in the classes, underground, and this is not behind the eye of the teacher.
Yeah.
Teacher cannot censor or can't supervise this kind of action in the classes. We think that just because we do the education, this doesn't mean that we can't change the children's incentive. In order to change the incentive, we think this policy is necessary because this policy will directly incentivize the children, recognize the children have to say, if we do the bullying, I will get the tangible harm. We think this tangible harm will directly change the incentive of children. We think that we think that this way is also necessary even if we are doing the education in the first place. Secondly, he talked about that children is ignorant. Children cannot recognize what is wrong and what is bad. Firstly, he didn't engage real debate from the Prime Minister because the Prime Minister has said if the children do the extremely bad thing and if there is the extremely outcome, the society have to intervene it and the society have to punish it. For example, the society can accuse the unacceptable action. For example, in the United States, minor use a gun and kill the 30 or 40 person in the United States. High schools. These persons are accused not only because these persons are accused even he is the minors because the society will gather the opinion from the society and society will pressure these kind of courts and society will force the government to accuse these kind of minors. As long as there is an extremely unacceptable outcome, we think the society have to intervene. We think negligence do not be the reason to be the legal defense. Yeah. Secondly, he has talked about the children is immature, that's why we should not punish them. The first thing, we don't accept the premise that children is not knowing and is not thinking that the bullying is bad. Obviously, the children are thinking that bullying is bad thing, but children are doing the bullying because they have a clear incentive to stop their bullying in the first place. And we have to talk about the case of bullying. We are not talking about the case of bullying which is occurring accidentally on the 1 day or 2 days. We are talking about the bullying. There is a continuous bullying for the 100 days or 200 days, and this is related to the death. We are not talking about acute bullying. We are talking about the serious bullying in the first place. Yeah. What does it mean? The children can recognize this is a bad thing because the children, the first thing they are doing every day, and they are bullying every day. They are pressuring, actively damaging the children in the first place. And secondly, they are like making the groups which bullying the children. We can't bullying the children. For example, they are doing like imitating the parents. They are acting like they are doing the funerals. They are saying that these children died and we have to do the funerals. These kind of groups, bullying is occurring in the South Korea. We are talking about these kind of serious cases. And in these kind of serious cases, children cannot say, I think this is not bad thing. Obviously, the children are knowing that this is bad thing. That's why the states can intervene in this case, and states can say we have to prosecute these kind of children. Because the children are not, even though the children are immature, we think that this kind of situation, the children knowing that this is bad thing, that's why the states can intervene. Secondly, he has talked about there is no, Secondly, he has talked about this is a subjective thing. There is no relation between the bullying and the death. We think this is the first way. This is not problem because, for example, in the case of the harassment in the job places, this is subjective in the first place, and moreover, we can gather objective, testimony or the way of the children. We can make the objective decision in the first place. And secondly, just because we will give the legal responsibility, this doesn't mean that we will punish automatically. This kind of discussion is occurring in the court, and this is already occurring in the case of the punishment of the status quo. We think just because this is subjective, it doesn't mean that we will not prosecute every kind of student which have made the damage for the society. When we see this damage is extremely severe, not only because this will harm the children, but also this is damage the families, or schools. We think this should be retributed by the society. And finally, he has talked about the children will do the suicide because they want to the revenge. We think this is ridiculous. The reason why the children are doing the suicide is not because they want to revenge, but also they cannot accept their situation. They cannot accept their lives, and that's why they do the suicide. We don't think these kind of children will do just because they want to revenge their that they are both of the brain. Okay, moving to my enhancement of my partner's argument. How is policy will change the situation of children? We think that there is three characters which is not carrying the bullying in the status quo. Two characters. Firstly, the school is not caring about the bullying well. We are not saying the school are okay to allow bullying, but what we are saying bullying because the school will not get the clear harm even if the bullying is occurring, and also the parents will not caring about the bullying well because the parents do not get the clear harm. And we think this is clearly extremely different from the legal punishment. Madam Speaker, we think this is, if we ask a new incentive in order to change the situation, we think we can change the situation because the parents or the school will also caring about the bullying in order to stop this kind of situation. And moreover, we think that in the industrial school, the reason why they are doing the bullying is because there is a leader and undecided children who whether we do the bullying or not. We think these kind of undecided will change their incentive because they will, these kind of, if we take this policy, these kind of undecided will be prosecuted if they like doing a bullying or if we become the member of the group which agree this kind of change. We think this is a clear difference if we take this policy, and we make the clear benefit if we take this policy. We can deter the 4,000 people's death, and we can deter, even though this is mild bullying as my partner has talked about. And more we can contribute the society, not only the society but also the family which is scared or saved by this kind of bullying. For that reason, Ms. Marasika, we are very proud of course.
I thank the second speaker from the affirmative. Now I call upon the second speaker from the other side to deliver his speech within 10 minutes. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the criminal justice system against the minority is straightforward. They always pursue the rehabilitation of the children. As far as those kinds of schemes make children be in prison because of the very easy word or the word uttered by the children without deep thinking, those kind of the scheme deprive the future of the children. Firstly, response. The previous speaker has said that in the United States of America, 4,000 elementary school students die every year. Yes, I know that. But the problem is, I do not think that the reason why bullying suicide occur in the United States of America is not because we do not punish the children in the first place, right? In the United States of America, especially in the states who have the huge poor people in its region, state always even in the public elementary school, they have the metal detection in order not to allow children to bring gun into the school, to bring drugs in the school. As far as those kind of situation is very uniquely in the United States of America, in Japan and Sweden, even though we do not punish children, the number of the suicide rate is declining very rapidly, right? As far as they do not show any reason why uniquely those kind of scheme not punishing the children is increasing the problem, we do not see any generality from the argument of the previous speaker. Secondly, they say children do not stop bullying just because they do not even though they think this is a bad thing. Firstly, what is the incentive for the children to constantly bully others, even though teachers or parents are very scary for the children, right? If you are young, of course the teachers or parents are always scary. If the teacher or parents scold deeply or scold very strongly, of course you shrink or you hesitate to do bad things. What is the incentive for the children to take such a risk, even though you have to be scolded very severely? Thirdly, they say schools do not care, even though the students in the school commit suicide. That news to me. If those children commit suicide, of course mass media broadcast in Alpha school, one elementary school children commit suicide, rush of the criticism going to the school because everybody thinks that those elementary school students is so pitiful. why those students bully is not prevented by the school is because teacher negligence. Madam Speaker, in the case, once those kind of bullying is a social phenomenon in a society, the state always care about the situation because parents always care the safety of the children in schools. They give the pressure for the government to arrange the enforcement to prevent bullying in the school. Like the case of Japan, for example, the Japanese all public school right now have the school counselor system. Every schools have the school counselor 2 days a week, and every time those teachers, if you want to get a teacher's license, you have to learn the psychology of the children before you become the teacher. The teachers always care the children's situation because they always patrol the schools, and there's no dead ankles. And even in the breaking time of the class, even in the class time, teachers are always existing in the classroom, right? Therefore, those kind of very systematic and organized, constant bullying do not exist in the school right now. The problem is my honorable reader of honorable partner Fukumoto has tell you that how the children receive the word from other people. Of course, children are somehow on a good way or bad way innocent. If they feel something, they utter a word like you are fat or like your skin is black or so forth. If the children, because without a very strong sense of guilty, this is a very inevitable thing if the school gives education to them. Therefore, once those children get hurt deeply by those kind of words, they will commit suicide. And in most of the cases, of course, we agree with the statement that the children think that I do not think that suddenly he committed suicide just because my word or so forth. And then those kind of very easy words brought them into the committing suicide. Those like very systematic like bullying existing in the LDC nation are very unrealistic as far as we see the proper education system in our society. Moving to my third issue, I would like to mention about how this punishment is a very over punishment for the children. Only argument from the entire formative side is that in the case of the suicide of the children, we can see the clear harm by the children. Therefore, this is not the over punishment. No, we say this is an over punishment because the Prime Minister itself admits that only in the case of murder, even though you are the young, like under 14, you would be punished. Only in the case of murder, the government, the court, thinks that we have the strong, concrete intention for the children to harm us. Therefore, we punish them. Even though you drink alcohol when you are the minors, you will not be punished, right? Even though you do some nuisance, you will just be scolded and you will not be sent into the prison. Therefore, in today's case, this is very different from the intention of the murders, right? Because children feel something, and they, of course, they might give a very disgusting word to the people, but those children of course do not have a strong hatred to kill those people. We see that this case is different. As far as my partner already clearly mentioned that how children is immature, how children are vulnerable to have low imagination to consider the harm towards others. We think that we do not see the strong intention for the children to drive them into the committing suicide. Moving to my fourth issue, I would like to mention about how moral education would collapse by taking this proposal. Madam Speaker, in the third scope, the schools gives a moral education why children should not bully others, like by giving this a made-up story. If there is an Aikun and Aikun was said that he is a part, of course he might feel very depressed or so forth. Don't you think so? Or so forth. Those kinds of very constant education about the moral education was done in order to prevent the bullying. But after taking this proposal, what will happen? According to the logic of the affirmative side, the moral education will become shift to the statement that if you bully others and those children commit suicide, you would be sent into the jail. Like please look at the case of the Alpha School. The 30 students in the classroom would be sent into the prison. If you do not want to be the same, you should not bully others. The problem is the children cannot really nurtured because like the story, real story, sending into the prison is very impressive to the children. They do not care the moral side of the education, and as far as the public schools exist to give the moral education to everybody, because if you do not nurture the morality, if you become adults, you would constantly say that you are the fat if you think so, and they will be eliminated from the society. You can nurture the proper social perception in a society. We beg to oppose.
Thank you, second speaker from the side. Now let's welcome with speaker from the side to the speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tomimoto-kun took a strategy that I would never take in the front of law student. Ladies and gentlemen, we say this is factually false. Ladies and gentlemen, they say status quo works. It works for you guys, ladies and gentlemen, but it doesn't work for the victims for suffering on the ground now. There are increasing level, ladies and gentlemen. Watch BBC, watch Asahi, number is increasing, ladies and gentlemen. We saw the instance of, for instance, mock funeral, which Gahaku pointed out, ladies and gentlemen. There are, for example, harassment daily. For example, like sexual harassment continuously has led to, in 2007, has led to suicide of individual. In 2009, we saw a similar instance being mocked by others. There's expanding problem, ladies and gentlemen. But even if we take their chase, the status quo works, we'll have more improvement on this side, and that's the reason we're very proud to propose. I'm going to analyze this debate on 3 levels. First, I'm going to take a look at characterization. Who exactly are children we're talking about? Because they have massive inconsistency and contradiction. Second, I'm going to take a look at when we can have legal responsibility. Third, I'm going to take a look at the effects on number of bullies at the end of the day. So this first level quickly of characterization. They had an inconsistent characterization, if you have noticed, ladies and gentlemen. Because if teacher said stop, if the teacher is so scary, children would stop bullying. But at the same time, they said, when it's legal, since children are so immature, they're unable to decide the calculus, they're unable to think of long-term benefit. That's why deterrence will not work. That's massive inconsistency coming from that side. Hayashikun, who's right and why, ladies and gentlemen? Explain us. We told you consistently who is the character on this side of the house. Children can understand that doing bullying is a bad thing, but the distinction between status quo and afterclass is this. They know that bullying is bad, but stopping or not stopping is the distinction here, ladies and gentlemen. Since current paradigm, there is no legal responsibility. Students think, well, it's not going to harm me. Why should I do it, ladies and gentlemen? But after taking this proposal, it's going to be legal. We'll put stigma. We'll put deterrence of prison and jail. That's why it's going to affect me. There's a short-term damage. Short-term harm that's going to be put on to children. That's why the calculus changes, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we told consistently for the first speaker. We want direct response. So they're really already behind the debate, but since I want to get more speaker points, let's go on to the second criteria. The second criteria is about legal responsibility. When we can actually do things. They try to say 2 things, so let's deal one by one. Firstly, they try to say this is so subjective. That's why we cannot do it. Tomimoto-kun answered by saying for poor people it's subjective, etc., etc. 2 responses from this side. Firstly, we accept this is a very subjective decision. This is a very difficult decision, ladies and gentlemen. But we always do this, ladies and gentlemen, because they're really narrowing down this debate to very, very light and funny and very cute bullying, ladies and gentlemen. There's spectrum bullying, ladies and gentlemen. Bullying, ladies and gentlemen. There are certain bullying which does lead to death, ladies and gentlemen. That's why Toshi started off debate clearly by saying this is similar to, for example, work-time harassment, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, there's spectrum how much you abuse your juniors, but obviously it becomes so excessive, there is a high correlation, ladies and gentlemen. And we told specific objective data would exist, which Gahaku pointed out has never been dealt from that side, ladies and gentlemen. We told you that this data would be given, for example, the will that was written by children, or summons which is done by testimony by classmates or by teachers, etc., to those devastating situations, and shows the contributing link between bullying and the suicide or death of individual. We already do this now. They cannot simply say we over 14, not over 18, to be punished, ladies and gentlemen. We also, just like they have also pointed out to the movement in the United States, where number signature has led to increasing punishment of high school student when he was shooting gun, ladies and gentlemen. It's reflecting the current paradigm, current needs of society, which is being damaged. We say it's consistent with that. Okay, actually three things. Third of all, they said children immature, they can risk long-term damage. One, we said that the fact that bullying is bad and killing is bad is already known by everyone. As Toshi pointed out right from the start. That is bad. It's through education, it's through media. We already do that. Two, we're talking about excessive bullying of continuously happening, which you have to characterize, ladies and gentlemen. It's like saying when children don't come to school, they laugh at them for having bullying has succeeded. They obviously know what's going on. Three, that's why we need a short-term incentive, ladies and gentlemen. We accept they can seek long-term harm. That's why we need short-term harm to be imprisoned and stigmatized and removed from school and have legal responsibility. That's a distinction we make it clear, right? More, we told you two reasons why we have legal responsibility. We just never been engaged by that side of the house. First, we told you when there's devastating damage, which is irreversible, ladies and gentlemen, we can punish it. Just like negligent homicide, assisted suicide, or labor harassment, or in case of the United States. When damage is so irreversible, you have such victims. The victim can never come alive, cannot exercise any rights. That's why this side is an exception, because this leads to death. Secondly, we told you the process of bullying itself is so traumatic, which Toshi explained lots of times, thank you, right? Of daily harassment, lynch, where blood flows continuously, being abused by words, name calling. That extent of damage merits legal responsibility when it's damaged society and the victim, just like other crimes such as negligent homicide or any assisted suicide, etc. That's why we told you the criteria. You need to answer those two things which are undealt, even though it's very, very late. So, to the third level analysis of deterrence, ladies and gentlemen, they said firstly, education would work to a certain extent, and school party or counseling can happily work. Lots of new alternatives, by the way. One, in case of Colombia, it did not work. In Colombia, gun shooting, there were bullying. It was impossible to find because of limited capacity. Two, people who are bullied would never stand up, ladies and gentlemen. It's very difficult to say, because they're being coerced by this bully, saying, if you say, I'll kill you, ladies and gentlemen, how can the hell they can stand up in these occasions? That's why you need to change the incentive. In the first place, Tomomoto-kun gave analysis of education. They do not care about the moral side. One, we are trying to teach the moral side as well. Two, if we do this already in case of drug, ladies and gentlemen, saying the drug is illegal, it's going to damage you, it's consistent with that. What's wrong with them, ladies and gentlemen? There's no uniqueness in that point. Three, they told you they're not going to do it because teachers or parents are so scary. One, the reason why it's not being found is because that happened underground, ladies and gentlemen. So this is super underestimate the risk to be found, ladies and gentlemen. When it's being done underground, what the possibility to be found, ladies and gentlemen? That's why the benefit of bullying overrides the cost of being simply going to the counseling for a few weeks, ladies and gentlemen. Two, itself is being fun, ladies and gentlemen, because bullying is still so fun for this individual to harass them, ladies and gentlemen. That's why your alternatives fail. We told you three reasons why there's going to be more deterrence. First, we told you from the perspective of children when they damage, long-term damage. Second, we told you from the perspective of school and parents, distinction here there's going to be stigma put on schools and more media coverage. That's the distinction deterrence they have to actually answer for. Third, we told you undecided children, which we could never hear any responses to. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a damage that's devastating, which is unacceptable. We have to get legal responsibility.
I thank the speaker from the affirmative. Now I call on the speaker from the negative side to deliver your speech within 8 minutes, please.
Madam Chair, we argue the nature of the bullying and the nature of suicide. They never showed us any direct correlation between the bully and suicide, unless otherwise they said court is absolute data that can identify the correlation. We doubt on that point. That's why we oppose on that side of the house. We have 4 things to talk about. First, I'd like to talk about whether the kids know the consequence of suicide and death or not. Secondly, I'd like to engage the deterrence point that was mentioned by the Toshi. Thirdly, I'd like to talk about show the difference between the workplace harassment and the bullying which is happening uniquely in the school conducted by the children. Lastly, I'd like to compare which side of the house can actively deter or actively minimize the number of casualty and suicide. Moving on to the one by one. So about the kids. They have told us that their moral education, that we tell that to the children that the murder is a crime that caused death and so on. First of all, it's okay, but distinction from the murder and suicide maybe they say caused by bullying, is that murder has direct correlation between action and the consequence. If you have intention to shoot someone directly, and if you shoot someone on their heart, they are more likely to die. It's obvious, right? But when it comes to bullying, it is quite interesting, and they are characterized. There's sometimes non-violent bully are there. So how can you say this non-violent bully or some laughing or looking down on this kind of particular target can lead to the severe consequence? It is highly unlikely. Moreover, the purpose of the bullying is different. The purpose of bullying is not kill someone, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. The purpose of bullying is just exclude some particular people from society. This should not be the only consequence, only desirable consequence of that bully, Mr. Speaker. And moreover, even though the bullying children know some precedents or some example in other school, but they may think that they are the exception. They are not the person, and they do not lead the severe consequence as the other children fail to achieve. Madam Speaker, they never mention about the characterization of the children. Only Mogu-san has clearly told you that just because they enjoy the bullying, they tend to kill someone. It is quite jumping logic, right? So just because they enjoy the bullying, so we have to certainly accept this kind of characterization. But we don't accept they have the active purpose to kill someone in the first place. I will why is that? First of all, for the children who are actually bullying someone. My partner Fukimoto has clearly told you, and never engaged by that of the house, is that first of all, as I told you before, the purpose of bullying is not to kill someone, and moreover, they think that they can control every single situation, and even though they cannot control, because they are immature, they are just 12 or 14-year-old children, they did not have any sort of tangible experience that can have the precedents that cause the irreversible action, Madam Speaker. And moreover, in the aspect of children who are bullied, it is highly unlikely that these children will stand up against this bully and tell, I will die soon, Mr. Speaker. It is quite unlikely because there is a power imbalance and power structure that is overwhelmingly provide advantage for the children that bully someone, and it is extremely hard for the children who are bullied to stand up and against and know and I will die. Moreover, even though they say, but for the children who are bullying, they think they cannot take this issue as serious thing because no one can know the subjective point of view within other people's mind, and no one unless they express directly towards this issue. And look at the case of Will left after the death of the suicidal. Even though we get some few words or some desire, I want to die, but it is highly impossible for us to consider as serious thing or not. So just because there's a fact that these children have died, this will have the tangible meaning, the tangible message to our society, Mr. Speaker. It is quite unlikely thing that children can know everything. And moving on to the second point, so about deterrence. Toshi said that after taking the proposal, because we can criminalize someone, we can have deterrence, and this is the only way to go. No, I have two responses. First of all, it is done by my leader of harassment is conducted by adults. It is not by the children, as I told you before. The children, and moreover, this is institutionalized crime, Madam Speaker. The adults have active intent, and they already know that they might maybe the severe consequence. Look at the Wakami or kind of black company. They can continuously exploit the individual worker, and they don't care whether they die or not, because they can easily replace the other employees from the other field, Mr. Speaker. This is the difference between workplace harassment and the children's harassment. Children do not know anything for the future, and children do not have any intention to structurally spiral this particular target into the death for the sake of their desire. It is not their what they want to do. Maybe that's the fourth thing. So about the other thing that about the deterrence. Gahak-san came up and said that other undecided children will hesitate to cooperate to the bullying after taking this proposal. It's not true, because first of all, it is contradictory to the Toshi's analysis, right? The Toshi has explained in this status quo, because their bullying is happening, other children feel that they might be the next target, and they want to resist others, Mr. Speaker. It is quite unlikely that it is inconsistent. Which is right. And secondly, even after taking this proposal, there are still incentives to collaborate, because as I told you before, there is a power structure. Look at the case, school bullying in the case, the boss may have the strongest power in that class and try to mobilize the other students and conduct the bullying, right? So how can you say these individual students can easily resist just because there might be a possibility of being prosecuted? It is, and moreover, children prioritize their circumstances, even though it is tiny, and it is because it's apart from the other society, apart from the legal jurisdiction field. For the children, their paramount is for the loyalty to their boss within the class. How can you say these children can deny? And moreover, there's other children, the children themselves who want to participate, think that this bully doesn't lead to the worst consequence of which is this, Mr. Speaker, because the people who try to say we want to participate might say it does not lead this situation. Moreover, people who participate also think that this not gonna be a severe consequence. We clearly told you. That's why after taking this proposal, the deterrence will not go up. After taking this proposal, bully will not disappear. What we have clearly told you is that there is gonna be a revenge attack, and moreover, moral corruption that's actually damaging the current framework to deter the suicide for the sake of life we are very proud to close.
Madam Speaker, I'm going to give you three issues to sum up the round. Firstly, I'm going to mention about the problem raised by the affirmative speaker, because we do not have punishment like in Britain or Germany or United States of America. Suicide is increasing. Firstly, I agree with the notion that in those kind of countries who have immigrants who have poor background students, we have increasing number of the students, but in the case of Japan and Northern European nations, the number is decreasing. And then, what we have to consider on today's debate, I have confidence about in those kind of knowledge. Firstly, what we have to consider here is that why the reasoning the student commit bullying in the status quo. The only statement is that we have data. The children enjoy harassing others. Firstly, we consistently doubt that even though the schools always censor the children, always teachers or parents teach them not to do that, why children's enjoyment excel than those compared to the risk of the children. We do not see children suddenly organize and they consistently enjoy even though they have the strong risk in doing that. And then those kind of a very organized problem which is overtly obvious for the society do not exist right now, if you follow the logic. And then those kind of polygons of the suicide can be the very careless one of the children and so forth. We see those kind of systematic problem does not exist because of the lack of this proposal. Secondly, about the criminal justice system. The only argument only refutation to my Fukumoto's argument is that we can collect the objective information, therefore we can objectively punish them. They do not understand our argument. Our argument is that in the case of working bullies, bullying itself is punished, right? But in the case of today's cases, children who say you are fat, A would be punished because their children will commit suicide. But in the case of B, even though he said the same thing, he would not be punished just because his friends do not commit suicide. How can you say this kind of unbalance in terms of criminal justice system? Just because they do the same thing, only one person will be punished. In the case of working bully, this is totally different because it is a punished bully itself. And then the only response is only when this is over punishment, we punish them. How can you say that children have the strong incentive to hurt friends even though they are the children, and this is not refuted totally by the affirmative speaker. Thirdly, I'm going to mention about the morality of the education. The only response from government is that we also give the moral education. I already referred to this point because only moral education is very is not have reality. Only the stories that children be sent into the prison have the impressing images to you. Children prioritize in seeing that, and the problem is not the same as the drugs, right? We say that the problem is this kind of education is not done in compulsory education, but the public schools, if the government lost those kind of opportunities to give education, to be the social person who have the sympathy to others, those kind of harm is so severe. Just because for the very organized, systematic bullying, the state lost all opportunity to give the moral education which is necessary for everybody to nurture their sociality in the society. For all those reasons, Madam Speaker, their target is very vague and most of the arguments based on the assumption. We beg to oppose.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. Suicide is the biggest scream that these people that have been victims of bullies have to notify the entire world that they were bullied and they have been hurt. Despite that scream, there has been no way to comprehensively stop these kind of bullying, precisely because of the attitudes of the school system and the attitude of people like the opposition have towards bullying. They think that it's subjective, so we don't have to do anything. It's not that serious, we don't know what happened, so just leave it alone. Without any kind of reason why this kind of death, irreversible to victims and both to the entire society, is serious enough. I'm going to talk about two things. First, three things. First, whether nature of bullying and the suicide is enough for criminal prosecution. And second, whether status quo is adequately dealing with these bullying. And third, whether the model works to prevent these things. First, about nature of bullying. We've told you from the very start that because of its seriousness, its irreversible nature, the fact that it has much more clear in terms of suicide, meaning that this has to be prosecuted. They said, first, it's subjective. There's no linkage. But on the other hand, they admit that bullying is extremely serious. Serious enough to have moral education classes and whatever that's necessary to deal with. So if it is serious and it has some correlation to suicide, it might not be complete, but some, we believe that's sufficient enough to make sure that that kind of prevention doesn't happen. Just because it's difficult to figure out does not mean that we just give up and do nothing. The court system deals with this difficult situation all the time. It is never clear what is the intent of the bully. It is never through the people around them, through the fact that they intentionally tell them to die and put up mock funerals, is the fact that they know that these people they wanted to die and they don't care about it. Now, then we believe it's serious enough to do so. Now about the status quo, because they said like, moral education in school, parents, counseling can somehow solve all these problems. But despite the fact, we've told you that all those things that are problematic about the status quo, the problem of it's hard to find, that it's hard for them to find the linkage, exactly stands on their side. So we don't see why that works in the first place. We've told you that if it's hidden, the only way is to deter these things, and when there is a suicide that occurs, we believe that the court and the prosecutors are the best actors to do it because they have the more power to call in witnesses. My partner has already told you numerous times, no response. We've told you that moral education has no grounds if it has no punishing mechanism. They said, well, school can punish it. We don't know how it does. What is the punishment? They have not given any specific on how it's dealt under status quo. And then our model. We believe that they have never rebutted how powerful the model is. They have no response for that. We've told you that the punishment and the fact that you will be handcuffed in front of the school and you will be facing prosecution is a clear message to a clear society and to the police that they should not only bully to stop bullying that might make them suicide, but bullying, any kind of bullying that could potentially lead to suicide should be stopped, and all people will be scared of that kind of effort. We believe that schools will take it more seriously if it actually prosecuted, rather than just like, one more suicide that happened one day. Ladies and gentlemen, there's enough damage, there is enough connection, we propose.
I thank you, last speaker from your perspective side. Now all speeches are over. Thank you for